All right. Welcome everybody here. We're gonna start in about a minute, so welcome to today's CLE. So we'll give a couple people some time to get in, get settled, so we'll get started right at the top of the hour. Got a lot of goodies to go through and not a lot of time to do it, so it should be a really fun one today. So just sit tight for a minute and we'll get started. Also, hello to everybody that will be watching this on demand. But the benefit of watching it live is you get to ask me questions, which is nice. Hello, hello. Should be a small group today. So truly, if you have questions as we go along, pop them into the chat, or you can put them into the Q&A box. We'll go through it, but just there's not a whole lot of people, so you could put them in the chat, and I should be able to see it. All right. Well, it's the top of the hour. I do not want to waste your time, so let's get started. Welcome everyone to today's CLE for the Florida Bar. Work smarter, not harder. Document and workflow automation for lawyers. This is one of probably in the top three things that made my law practice less stressful would be doc automation and workflow. So I'm very excited about this. A little bit of housekeeping. So I will be answering, if you are watching live, I will be answering your questions live. Just put that into the chat or into the Q&A box. I will find it. And as always, this should be up on Legal Fuel after the fact. You'll receive a copy of the recording and the slides too. Alrighty, so a little bit about me, your cruise director for the day. My name is Jordan Turk. I am a practicing family law attorney down here in Texas, so you know all the drama all the time. Real fun, but it's nice. There's a little bit of a lull going into the summertime. So if you are a family law attorney, I understand you and I understand your plight. But in addition to being an attorney, I'm also the director of education and attorney development at Smokeball. So for those who are unfamiliar with Smokeball, or if this is your first interaction with somebody from Smokeball, welcome. So we're an all-in-one cloud-based practice management software for attorneys. So this means we help you manage all of your day-to-day, both legal and administrative want tasks. So this includes things like case management, right? The bulk of what we do, billing, trust accounting, timekeeping, everyone's favorite, especially mine. I was the worst at it before I had technology come in to help me. But we help you do everything, all the way to three-way trust account reconciliation. So it's kind of like an all-in-one, one-stop shop. And that's the beauty of a practice management software. You don't have to have a million integrations to run your firm. This is all you need. And it completely changed the game for me. It's what ultimately brought me to Smokeball. You don't know what you don't know. And I, as a family law practitioner at the time, did not know what practice management software was. It wasn't even something on my radar. I just knew that I was drowning. So discovering this was a really great thing for me. So if you want to know more about Smokeball, what we do, or what a practice management system even is, we're going to have a poll for you at the very end of today's CLE where you can request that we reach out to you with more information. But incredible piece of software, completely revolutionized my firm. And most important, we are an approved member benefit provider for the Florida Bar. So this means you get a 10% discount on our subscriptions. Practice management software runs on subscriptions, so this is what you're going to find anywhere and everywhere. But it's a huge deal for you and for the Florida Bar. So go ahead, click on that link that Julianne is posting into the chat if you want to learn more about it, or scan this fancy schmancy QR code, and that'll take you to the landing page that'll cover more of the partnership. All right, well, we're going to get into today. So I'm going to talk about document automation, or doc automation for those of us in the know. And then we'll get into an intro to checklists and workflows, how to actually create your checklists and workflows. I'll give you example templates. And then at the very end, I'll give you a live demonstration. A lot of this, if you're talking about document automation, if you're talking about workflows, it's kind of difficult if you are only seeing it on a PowerPoint slide. I think the same thing about when I give courses on generative AI and what that looks like. It's hard to put that into a slide and then say, hey, here's a picture of ChatGPT. It's much easier when you can actually get into it and type into it, and you actually see how it works, kind of the guts of it. So I'll be doing the same thing here, and I'll show you what this looks like in real time with document automation, with workflows. That being said, I'll show you the technology side, but I'm going to give you options during today's CLE where you can do it manually. So we'll talk about checklists and how to do it manually, how to keep that document on your computer, who gets to update it, things like that. So I will give you those templates and we'll go through that, how to do it manually and how to do it manually the right way. And then I'll also give you the option of, hey, here's what it looks like if you use technology to do it. And I'll list out some companies too that can help you with these different pieces. But that being said, let's get started. Again, if you just joined, go ahead. If you have questions, pop those into the chat or pop those into the Q&A box, and I'll get to those at the very end of today's session. All right, so diving on into document automation. First of all, what is it? This was something that was not in my vocabulary 5 years ago. When I was really in the depth of my practice, I had no idea what document automation was. Typically, how it worked for my firm, if I had documents that I used all the time, like petitions or final orders or something discovery related, right? We kept it all on a firm drive, and they were saved as master template or master document, and then you would just go copy that document and copy that template and then paste it into a new one, right? And then you would take out a petitioner respondent and put, your own words into it, things like that. So you'd make the document your own. So that's typically how we worked for the first 5 years of practice. I did not know that there was anything different with that. I did not know that there was something that could have saved a lot of time with that too. So that's what document automation is essentially, is taking those heavy hitter documents that you have, be it pleadings or discovery and anything and everything between. Think about documents that you use all the time, and you're just templatizing those documents. So no matter what document you open in a case, you're going to open it and it's automatically filled out for you. All of the client information is already there. All of opposing counsel's information is already there, right? Your certificate of service is automatically filled out for you. And that's what document automation is. It's just that piece of technology that bridges that gap between basically all the information that you would get on intake from your client and about the opposing party, and it will automatically insert that into any document that you open in a case. So super, super powerful, and it's definitely something, again, that I just did not know existed. So that's in a nutshell what document automation is. That being said, some people go crazy with document automation. You do not need to automate 100% of all of your documents because that gets cumbersome and a little crazy. But your heavy hitters, the ones that you're using all the time, automate them. Your court and authority forms, which can get very annoying for yourself or your paralegals, definitely. When we have to fill out child support forms or wage withholding orders, things like that, it's so much nicer now when those are automated and all I have to do is open up that, wage withholding order and it's already filled out for me, ready to go off and ready to be filed. So it's just a nice way. It saves you a bunch of time. If you typically, when I was, downloading the templates and then copying and pasting them, I was doing a find and replace. Find and replace petitioner will be my client's name, respondent will be the opposing party's name, things like that. So you spend actually quite a bit of time just finding and replacing or copying and pasting from, template to template. So this just, eliminates all that for you. So benefits we already talked about, it saves you a bunch of time. It's also a form of quality assurance, and I speak from personal experience on this one. Let me invite you to my mortification corner, where one time I was drafting a prenuptial agreement. It was pretty hairy in it because, I think, gosh, it was probably a 50-page prenup once you included all the schedules and things like that. But so it was a long one. I'd been working on it for a while. And then the morning of, there was a last minute change. Some things had to be reworked. And the problem was I did not have document automation software. So I just did my regular old find and replace via Microsoft Word. And, find and replace everywhere where it says petitioner, it'll be my client. And I just wanted to make sure, because I added a provision and just wanted to make sure that all of it matched in that petitioner that was replaced with my client's name. I did it. I printed out 10 copies for everybody, right? My client's there, opposing counsel's there, opposing parties there. We have the videographer, we have the notary, everybody is there, everybody gets a copy. And the problem is, as soon as we sat down, my client turned to me and said, "Oh, my name is misspelled here. I added on an extra T to his last name." And I wanted to die. So that was a really, I was absolutely mortified because there was no time at that point to go and reprint out 10 pages of, 10 copies of 50-page prenuptial agreements. So I ended up just reading it into the record that we all agreed that this was my client, but it was still very embarrassing. My client paid me a lot of money for that prenuptial agreement. All of that could have been avoided had I had some sort of document automation software. Because again, I don't have to worry about a wrong copy paste job. It already has the right information from the outset of the case, so it already has the same correct information when I open up a pleading. Also protects you, I would say, in addition to that story, there's also an embarrassing one where, bane of my existence, a lot of times when I'm doing pleadings, is copying and pasting case styles, sometimes called case captions, depending on your jurisdiction. That's just, the stuff, the gobbledygook at the top of your case that tells you where the case belongs. And my problem was I would copy and paste that all the time. The format would never match. It would never match up. I'd get very upset about it, and it would take me a good couple minutes to like fix the format on these case styles or case captions, and it really did annoy me. Well, one time I was rushing, I think, to draft a final decree of divorce, and I had copy pasted the case caption from a prior pleading in that case to our template that we had, right, for our final decree. And I didn't realize that I did not copy paste very well, because when I got the certified copy back from the court, I noticed in the case caption, it says, in the district court of yada yada, Harris County, comma, Texas. I had copy pasted it wrong, so now it says Texas with an extra S. And now that is on their final decree of divorce, on their certified copy, what they would have to look at every day on the first page. And that's just very bush league of me. And I say that because I want you to learn from my many trials and tribulations when it comes to quality assurance when it comes to document automation. So just something to keep in mind. Hopefully this hasn't happened to you. Same thing I would say with opposing counsel. Sometimes I would get some discovery requests, right? Just your ROGs and your RFPs and things like that, disclosures. But I'd be reading through the RFP and I would see midway through they were talking about my client, and it would be my client's name, but then midway through the RFPs, it would switch to a whole different person. So clearly opposing counsel had taken these pleadings from a prior case and just tried to copy paste my client's name in there, and then they got lazy halfway through and just, stopped. And so it's now this prior person from a completely different case. It's their request for production. So that is also mortifying. And, obviously we make fun of it. And if I wanted to be a terrible person, I could, object to those RFPs or those ROGs saying that it didn't name my client. So just something to think about. And that is the end of my mortification corner. Okay, so what can document automation software actually do? So like I said before, it's just pulling all of your client details, it's pulling all of your court details and everything related to your matter, and it's inserting that into the document. So now I can open up any type, and I'll show you this later, but now I can open up any type of document that I want, and everything's already pre-populated, including my favorite, the case style up top. So I don't have to worry about formatting that anymore. Terrible copy paste jobs, things like that, it's already done for me. And when you really start getting into it and you start nerding out with these various different pieces of software that can do document automation, you realize you can actually automate and put logic and put conditions into them. So for instance, if there are no children in this case and I pull up my final decree of divorce, one of the first questions it's going to ask me is, are there children, related to this case? And when I click no, it will take out all of those relevant provisions with regard to children. So I no longer have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about deleting those provisions myself or worrying about if I did it correctly. It's just automatically done. So it's really, really cool. Same with, for instance, a fee agreement. So if I go through a fee agreement, I'm going to have a condition present where a question pops up and asks, is a third party paying for my client's legal fees? And when I click yes on that fee agreement, it will then attach a third-party pay or addendum that the parents should sign. So it's just nice. You can condition it and try to make it as foolproof as possible. And these are just some examples. So for instance, on the left is just everything that you would enter into a case, right? This is just kind of condensed down. But what are the names, addresses, everything, all the relevant information? And then on the right, it's asking what type of document do you want to open? So for instance, if I said, oh, I want to open a closing letter or something like that. So this is what it looks like. On the left, it's kind of gobbledygook while it automates, and then on the right is where all the magic happens. So this probably takes about 5 seconds to do, where the computer's just doing it for you in the background, but everything's entered in. Today's date's already done. And then the subject line is already there. Typically, I just have the cause number in the subject line. Opposing counsel's information is already input. It's just things that you don't have to worry about going back into your intake paperwork to copy and paste into a different document. You know what I mean? So here's how this works. For one, first, you're going to choose your documents. Let's say we do this closing letter. And then this is that conditional logic I was telling you about. It's going to say, hey, insert the number of years the file will be stored, because on my closing letter, I say, hey, we have to keep your case, we keep your file for, 7 years. And so I put that in there. And then if there are outstanding fees, I also say yes, and it will follow up and ask me how much. And then it spits out this closing letter. But all I had to do was answer 2 questions, and it did all of this for me. I didn't have to copy and paste anything. I didn't have to go and find a prior template that I could use to copy paste, so everything is in here. You'll see it also says about the file storage can't talk for 7 years and how they still owe me $500, things like that. So it's trying to make it as streamlined and as easy as possible. And here's kind of what it looks like behind the curtain. So some guts of it. Everything in gray is conditional logic that you would answer. So for instance, the conditional logic is going to ask you, who do you want this addressed to? Is this hourly? Is this flat? Things like that. So it's going to ask you those questions to be able to fill this out for you properly. And then also, I'm encountering this a lot more. This guy is really cool. This attorney, his name is Matthew Kurbis. He's getting famous because he runs a subscription model, and he speaks on subscription models a lot, and just a very smart, very cool attorney. If you go to subscriptionattorney.com, that's his website. This is where I pulled it from. But essentially, he offers these various subscription models, anywhere from $20 to $2,500 monthly, just depending on what you need. But where he makes a lot of his money too is these flat fee services. And so when I saw this, I asked him, I said, hey, I see that you have a prenuptial agreement on here listed for $650. I charge at a minimum $3,500 for my prenups. Like, how is that possible? How is that cost effective for you? And he said, document automation. And that's a big thing, right? Because he doesn't have to worry about copying and pasting. He doesn't have to worry about if he got this right and double checking, if the names are spelled correctly. That's already done. The document's already drafted. So all he has to do is go in and pick and choose what provisions he wants or what provisions he wants to take out. So it just makes it a whole lot easier. So if you are thinking about something like doing a subscription model, I would absolutely be looking into document automation. Would also be looking into other tech like Calendly, to set time on your calendar and things like that if you're doing subscription services. But at the core of it, definitely you want to have some sort of document automation software. All right, document automation is not document assembly. That's something where it creates a document out of thin air, which is what a lot of AI, is going to be trained to do in the near future. But document automation is not that. So document automation is just taking an existing template that you have and automating it. So it's not creating something out of thin air like generative AI would do for you. It's also not putting your staff out of work. I think this was a fear probably about 5 years ago when it kind of hit the scene, or 10 years ago when it hit the scene, where a lot of, especially paralegals, thought, oh, well, this is going to put me out of work. This is what I do. We found the opposite, where it's just making you more efficient. It also just gives you a little bit of breathing room where you're not having to micromanage as much, like I was having to do with some of my staff, because I would find these little hiccups and find these little mess ups, and it would kind of drive me nuts, right? Because sometimes it's just a matter of copying and pasting. And granted, I did wrong when I did that, but I was finding it a lot more with my staff. And so that was kind of also grating on me, and, kind of keeps you up at night. So it's just one of those things where it doesn't put them out of work, but it does make you feel better and makes them feel better. You just feel more secure when it comes to that, which in turn also allows them to convey that to the client. So just, it's a symbiotic relationship between everybody in your firm and your client. Right, Document Automation Junior, if I have time, I'm going to get into the actual demonstration of this. So for those who maybe you don't want to dip, you just want to dip your toes a little bit into the world of document automation, Microsoft Word has something that you can play around with. It's called Quick Parts. I know that's a weird name. Stay with me on this journey. Essentially, it'll just save your favorite provisions that you use all the time. You can save that into Microsoft Word. So instead of having to drag up your document where you have maybe your favorite discovery objections, or you have your signature block, or you have your case style, right? Instead of doing that, you can just save it into Microsoft Word itself. And that's in quick parts. So then when you are going through discovery responses, or say that you're drafting a petition and you need to insert your signature block, you can just go into that auto text gallery on quick parts, find what you've labeled as signature, and you can just insert it that way. So it just kind of saves you a little bit of time and energy if it's already in Microsoft Word, and you can put shortcuts with that. So when I start typing discovery objections, it'll automatically pop up with what I want. If I start typing discover, or if I start typing in signature, it'll pop up with that quick parts and that gallery. So it's just nice. It just makes it a little bit more streamlined than having to go and take your template, and copy and paste it from, whatever area you have on your computer. Also, if you have this, if you are using templates that are saved, somewhere on your firm drive, it better be in the cloud. It should not be on your desktop. I just want to tell you that right now, your staff do not appreciate you if it is saved on your desktop. So these, let's say your master templates, right, are saved somewhere on your firm drive, completely fine and great. What I would do if you have not is each of those should be saved as a read-only file. If you have questions about that, or you want me to give you a little bit of a live demonstration of that before we end today, I absolutely can. Just put that into the Q&A box or put that into the chat and I'll get to it. But what that means is what would happen at our firm before they were read-only files, we'd have all of our master documents and our master templates on the firm drive, and somebody would get in there. I'm not saying who. Somebody would go in there and just start, not thinking, they would forget to copy and paste it into a different document. And so they would just start writing and saving over the master template, which is a problem if I've now taken out provisions and things like that because they don't relate to my case, because we just can't get that back. We can't get that master template back. So that's a huge, huge issue. So it takes about 10 seconds to save it as a read-only file, which means that if somebody in your office, paralegal associate, whomever, if they open it, they are not able to write into it. They have to copy it and they have to paste it if they want to use it. So make sure that if you are doing this and you don't have any like legal technology for document automation, and you're just kind of using Microsoft Word right now for your templates, totally fine. Just make sure that, one, they're saved into a cloud-based software, and then two, make sure that they're read-only files. All right, intro to checklists and workflows. So first of all, what is a workflow? I feel like workflows are probably the most underutilized feature in any type of technology or even a manual process. I think more firms should have workflows. This would probably alleviate a lot of anxiety on attorneys' parts, especially managing partners' parts, but we'll get into it. So it's essentially just a checklist, right? It's a checklist of your heavy hitters, and we'll get into it. But you're saying, let's take the intake process. It's a checklist of everything that should happen at that intake process. Here's the form that the client should fill out. The client needs to pay the retainer. The client needs to sign the fee agreement. And hey, by the way, if the fee agreement and the retainer, if we don't receive both of those, then we can't begin work on the original petition for divorce. So things like that. It's just a checklist that makes things a lot easier for you, and especially for your staff. So if you are trying to grow your firm, and especially if you're trying to hire more paralegals, workflows are where it's at. Because right now, and how my firm used to function, it would be, hey, we're hiring a new paralegal. Great, yes. But then that paralegal would have to sit with the senior paralegal for probably a week or so and get everything down. So they're writing everything in a notebook, or they're putting it on sticky notes around their computer, which is not a good way to do a workflow. And then things fall through the cracks at that point because they're kind of trying to remember from memory or from their notes what they need to do on any particular case. And that's not good for you and not good for the firm. And this is how deadlines get blown. And that was my big thing, and why I wanted to implement workflows so badly, is because, especially for discovery, I know I talk about that because I hate it so much, but especially for discovery, a lot of things would fall through the cracks, and then it became a staff blame game on whose fault it was, right? Oh, I didn't know that I was supposed to save that down into the system. Oh, I thought that so-and-so was supposed to send a copy to the client. Oh, I didn't realize that the deadline was midnight and not, so it's just a whole thing where it's never anybody's fault, apparently, when a deadline's blown, but at the end of the day, it's my bar card on the line. So implement a workflow if this has been a problem for you and your firm. So just more, we don't have to talk about all of these, but why you should use workflows. Good thing here is, sometimes your staff takes PTO, blessed PTO, and it's nice to have somebody just be able to pop into their cases and know exactly what needs to happen at any given time. So everyone knows what's been done in a case, what's outstanding, and to whom a particular task is assigned. So if somebody leaves for vacation, somebody can seamlessly step into that case and understand what needs to be done with it, which is pretty rare. Typically, when attorneys or staff at my old firm would go on vacation, we would have to have a 2-hour meeting with our staff and say, okay, well, here's where we're at on every single case, and here's what needs to be done. And that wastes a lot of time. So just think about that for workflows. And it allows you to guide staff through a case, even if the staff is new or green, right? It's less training time, like I was talking about before. Instead of them having to sit with a paralegal, they can just kind of hit the gate, or hit the course running on that one. I'm not saying that properly. I can't speak today, but they can hit the ground running. And then also allows for easy delegation of tasks. So if somebody is out sick, somebody's out on PTO, I can easily move that workflow and have it be assigned to somebody else. Also, when you get really fancy with it, and especially if you have technology to help, it works within your relevant deadlines. So if I say, hey, I have a workflow with regard to discovery is due in 30 days, or if I have my scheduling order for trial and I have a workflow related to that scheduling order, because there are, a billion deadlines associated with it, all I have to do is type in my trial date, and then it's going to populate a workflow with everything I need to have done prior to that. So it's pretty great, pretty seamless when it comes to that. A lot of them can integrate with your legal software. You just got to find, and we'll talk about which types of companies will work with that with workflows and document automation. But my big thing is I get full transparency on who is supposed to do what. So I'm not having to worry about it. I'm not having to worry about somebody coming to me and saying, oh, I thought that was legal assistant's job and not mine, things like that. Everybody knows at any time what they're supposed to be doing and on which cases. Okay, we've already talked about the staff blame game, so we'll go there. So there are two types of things we're going to be talking about. So I told you I'll give you two options. One will be the manual process, which is a checklist, but it's not just a checklist. Like you're thinking when you have a checklist in your mind, you're thinking of probably something pretty low tech that looks a little like, oh, I've written it on a piece of paper. No, there are very nice checklists that you can use. I'll give you some templates to show, hey, here's things that you should be including on those checklists if you're doing a manual process. But so you'll be using Excel or Word, something like that to track these, and I'll give you some templates and examples. And then if you want to get really sophisticated with it and take it to the next level, that's what workflows are, where you can start integrating things like reminders. You can start automating into workflows too, which is pretty cool, like document automation within workflows. So for instance, if I have a discovery workflow and we always have a letter that we send to the clients explaining what discovery is, hey, don't freak out. Here's what you have to do. That's also automated within the workflow. So all that my paralegal has to do is check off that workflow, and that document is already sent to the client. It's already made out to her. It already has all of her relevant information within that letter that I sent her. So it's pretty cool when you can start getting into it and really nerding out on it. But yeah, so, and then also you can integrate it with billing, and we'll talk about that too. But there's just kind of a lot of stuff that you can do when it comes to checklists and workflows. All right, so how to create them though. So first of all, this is just something that I did really quickly with regard to intake. This is just Smokeball on the right because I work here, but you could do this with any type of software that you have. They're all going to be around the same type of deal. So one, I'm just going to say, okay, I need to enter the details from the client into my system. I need to draft the engagement letter. Client needs to review and sign it, and then I put some tests in there too, which would be client needs to pay the retainer, all that jazz. So, but the cool thing about it is it's completely customizable to what you need for your firm, or you can always work from existing workflow templates. Every place has them. And so you can do that. And then you can also create those dependencies that I talked about too. Like, hey, we can't continue to the next step until this has happened. Because what was happening at my firm is we would be getting these new clients in, they would sign the engagement agreement, and then they'd say, oh, hey, by the way, I have to go to the bank to get the retainer payment. No problem, cool. Well, the issue is the attorneys would immediately start working on the case because maybe there's a deadline coming up or their answer is due. And so they would immediately start working on it. They would file it. Client would come back a few hours later and say, oh, you know what? I thought about it. I just don't have the funds to do it right now, or I don't want to go forward with it. So that's the problem because they signed this fee agreement. They haven't done the retainer. You're never going to see any of that money. You're never going to get any money from your client. And now you have to spend time withdrawing from the case. And in Texas, at least, I cannot charge the client for anything related to withdrawal from a case. And so now I'm out probably $600 just because I didn't wait for the client to come back and give me their retainer payment. So what you can do, whether it's a manual process or a technical process, you can just make sure to put a dependency in there where they have to check off that they've received the signed fee agreement and they've also received the retainer. And then once both of those are checked off, then you can proceed to, drafting the original petition or drafting the answer, whatever you need. So it just helps it basically makes it so that nothing falls through the cracks, right? You're trying to eliminate as much human error as possible. So that was one thing that we improved upon at the firm too. All right, so step one, whether you are doing a manual process or a technical process, this will be the same at this stage. So step one, pick the heavy hitter workflows for your firm. And here's what I mean by that. Think about what tasks do I do or do my staff do that are on a routine basis. So for instance, intake or initial pleadings and service with regard to their initial pleadings, a lot more goes into that than people think. Something related to SOLs, discovery is my big thing, as y'all have noticed. Mediation prep, settlement trial, closing out the file should be on everybody's list. Closing out, absolutely. Underutilized, you should have some sort of process for this. I don't care if it's manual, I don't care if it's online. You need to have something in place about that. I'll include a blue sheet closeout file example manual process at the very end of this. But you should have it. So in step two, once you pick one of these, right, you've picked one of these, you'll go on to document the steps that are involved in that particular workflow. So for instance, this is just my very granular, and you can be as global as you want or as granular as you want with these steps. But for me, I'm very paranoid. Discovery was a huge, huge issue at my firm. We just had a lot of cases and a lot of things I think would slip through the cracks. So I was very granular with my discovery process. So you'll see here, I'm not going to read through all of it, but here's the person that would be assigned to the task, and here's the actual task. So, right, hey, attorney or paralegal is going to receive these requests. Somebody's going to save it down into the software. Someone's going to calendar the deadline. Someone's going to create the discovery file, right, for the client in the software. Somebody's going to draft that discovery letter that I talked about before, and you'll send it along with the request to the client. And then you'll ask the client to confirm receipt because clients get convenient amnesia when their discovery is due. And you ask them where it is, and they say, oh, I never received the letter. I always ask to confirm receipt, and you're going to save those emails down into your system too. So yeah, so all of this just goes tick, 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 tick. And for me, it included ways that I could prevent any type of mishaps or finger pointing, things like that. So I got very granular with it because discovery is just one of those things where it comes back to bite you if you don't do it right the first time. So these are just all of my steps. This is what I've made and this is what I've written down. It took me maybe 15 minutes. And doing the work now means that you don't have to do the work on the back end. So just do it now. And then step three, you're going to consult your staff because chances are your associates or your paralegals or your legal assistants, they're all going to have input for you pertaining to this. So typically I would just send out that workflow and say, hey, what does this look like? Is there anything that I'm missing? Is there something that you usually do that I haven't included in here? Things like that. And you're going to deal with probably three types of staff when it comes to implementing workflows and implementing document automation. One are going to be those resistant to change. So, those attorneys or legal professionals who say, well, I don't see why I have to save my documents now into the cloud. They're fine when they're just on my desktop. We had an attorney like that. That was a very real conversation we had to have with them, but she eventually did it. And then you have your soldiers that are just willing to do it because, hey, this is part of their job. And then you have your enthusiasts who are super excited about this because they've seen the chaos of not having a workflow, and they're absolutely going to ride or die for you with regard to a new process like workflows or document automation. So try to encourage the enthusiasts, right? Try to explain the why to your staff, like say, hey, this is going to make it so much easier for you to be able to go on vacation. It's going to be easier training wise so that I don't have somebody having to sit at your desk for 2 weeks, right, while you train them. So just make sure you kind of have to sell staff on it and sell staff on a change, but this is what's going to help you grow. This is what's going to help you sleep better at night, is having these processes in place. And also, of course, invite feedback at every step. Typically what we did when we implemented something new, especially for technology, we scheduled weekly meetings where we just did a very brief rundown. Hey, is everything working? Should anything change? And then you can back off those meetings, because there's going to be less and less where people have questions. All right, and step 4, test your actual workflow. And once you've done that, basically you kind of have to do an edict for your firm and say, hey, this is what's going to happen now. From beginning to end, here's the workflow that everybody is expected to use. Everybody should be in compliance with this. Try not to have a random attorney who's just like, well, I've done it this way and I'm profitable and I'm not going to try anything new. Try to nip that in the bud, because at the end of the day, that's still somebody that works for your office. Their paralegal works for your office. And at some point, that attorney might be out sick or that paralegal might be out sick. And you need to still be able to cover their cases to make sure that there's no disruption to the client case that would implicate our ethical duties, right? So just try to sell it like that too. At some point, it does come down to our duties and responsibilities that are imposed on us by the state bar. And then you'll evaluate what worked, what didn't work. You'll finalize your workflow. And just what we talked about too, it's a firm-wide mandate. Everybody needs to use it. No exceptions. This took a while for us, especially for the closeout files that we did, because a lot of attorneys, you finish a case, and a lot of staff, you don't want to see that case ever again, especially if the client was terrible. But you still need to close out that file. And there's a lot of steps to do so, especially in a family law case. So it was one of those things where we took a step back and realized only half of the attorneys had been doing this properly and filling out a blue sheet and checking it off. So we made a firm-wide mandate, did a whole new workflow, and said, hey, everybody has to adhere to this, period. And the managing partner started monitoring it on a weekly basis. All right, and here's some example templates before we get into, I'll show you and get into the actual system and show you what workflows look like, and then we'll get into questions too. But here are just some example templates. If you want them, I could absolutely send them to you. But for instance, when I talked about a scheduling order, so say I got a scheduling order based on a trial date. Right, there's a lot of there's a lot of different due dates that go into that, like a deadline for written discovery, deadline for depots, deadline for motions in limine, things like that for pretrial conference, right? Just everything that would be on your scheduling order, you can plug that into a workflow. And so here's what the workflow on the left would look like if it was a manual process. So this is just, hey, manually, here's what it is. I'll show you it in a prettier format with the checklist after this. But so here's the basic information that I would need from my scheduling orders. And I just push that into the right. And that's what it looks like in Smokeball, where it's just a scheduling order based off of the trial date. And that took me maybe 10 minutes to assemble in Smokeball. And just because I already had what was on the left, it was pretty easy peasy to just transform it into a more technical workflow from the checklist. But that's really what it is. And you'll see, you can say when the due date is, who is responsible for it, right? Is it the attorney? Is it the person assisting? Is it a staff member? You can name it. Name the staff member that it's assigned to, things like that. You can put notes in there, so it's just nice. You can, like I said before, you can attach documents to it if there's a document that pertains to that particular workflow. So it's just nice. Everything works out really well. I guess, oh, my favorite. So this is a more global discovery response, because obviously mine is a little hardcore. So this is just a more global discovery response checklist on the left. So that's just your manual checklist. And then on the right is that checklist transformed into a workflow. So again, you need to tell them what you're looking for, who it's assigned to, what the due date is, or when it's due, right? Because sometimes it's not due on a date, it's due, it's triggered by, a date. So it's not due until, hey, 30 days after XYZ, things like that. Oh yeah, some estate planning, which is nice, especially if you're doing intake. So everybody has intake software now pretty much, but if you wanted to turn that into a workflow, you absolutely could. So this is just a little one that I threw together for estate planning. Criminal DUI, so same type of deal, right? Again, you can be as global or as granular as you want. This is more global. I need to obtain certified copies of driving record from the SOS. I need to obtain copies of warning to motorists. So I need to review the driving record. I need to draft the petition. I have a 30-day reminder to file the petition. So it's just everything that you would be scared to forget when it comes to your case. Put it into a workflow, because it's just, as far as your mental health is concerned, it's going to make things a whole lot easier for you. Because it would be one of those things where, especially with discovery, I at some point would wake up in a cold sweat at 2 a.m. knowing inherently that I'd blown a deadline or that something wasn't filed correctly. And so I'd go into the office the next day, check, sure enough, somebody had forgotten to do XYZ. And ultimately, that's my responsibility and my issue. And so that started happening more and more, especially as we started hiring more and more paralegals, and especially green paralegals, that required more training. So it was just a little tough. A lot easier, and, and I'm able to sleep a lot better with workflows in place. So here's what I was talking about, a manual process. I'm happy to send this to you if you need it. Just email me. Let me move this around so I can actually see it. Okay, so if you don't want to go in too far or venture too far into a legal technology process, here's what it looks like when it's just manual. So you'll put client name at the top and cause number at the top, and then you'll just keep going down and you'll say who's assigned what, and here's what they have to do. So this is just a closeout file, what we would call a blue sheet. If, for instance, we non-suited the case or there was a withdrawal, praise be, I've never regretted withdrawing from a case ever in my life, or if somebody substituted into the case. So here's what would need to happen. You'll see who it's assigned to. Is this a legal assistant? Is it a paralegal? Here's for the file room and here's for billing. And so then you'll see on the right, it says date completed. So the person who is completing that particular task is going to put the date that they completed it, and then also their initials. So that way you know who's assigned to what, who did what, and on what date. So for instance, if you need to go back and track down an email, or maybe the client is filing a grievance or something like that, you can easily go and find these things. But it'll be very simple. So for the legal assistant, they need to make sure that the order for non-suit is filed, put the date completed, and when they initial by it, you're going to save a copy of that into the firm drive. You're going to send a copy of that to the client. You're going to put something on the calendar because you're going to send the client file offsite after 30 days. The paralegal needs to break down all those files and all the red ropes and all the notebooks, things like that, because I want them out of my office. They're going to give unnecessary duplicates to the file room to shred, and then they're going to give the client originals to the client, or anything that should be saved to the file room, they'll put that in the file room. But again, they're going to check off that they did it, and they're going to say the date that they completed it. Same with file room, right? Or sometimes that's just me, and I am the file room, especially now that I'm a solo attorney. I'm all of these people. But so yeah, same type of deal goes with that. Billing, especially. This falls through the cracks a lot as far as closeouts are concerned. Being able to say that, yes, I sent them their bill. I said that their file is being closed. I confirmed that there are no outstanding fees. I requested a refund if applicable, the remainder of their retainer if needed, things like that. So you just go through all of these little things. And I like to call closeout files or blue sheets, manual processes or technical processes. It's basically the process of not getting sued, because I feel like this is where a lot of grievances happen with the bar, especially in Texas. What'll get family law attorneys a lot is they don't follow up with quadros, which are qualified domestic relations orders. It's how you divide 401ks and things like that in a divorce. A lot of times they will be listed in the decree and it says, yeah, hey, this will be divided via quadro, but then nobody actually does the quadro, or nobody submits the quadro to the plan administrator when it needs to happen. And that's where you land in a bunch of hot water, because all of a sudden it's been 10 years and the client realizes that money was never transferred, and then turns out their ex-spouse already drained that account years ago. So you can imagine attorneys get sued quite a bit when it comes to quadros, but you could eliminate that whole issue if you had that separately in your closeout file. So just things that you need to think about if you've been, sued, or if you have a manual process, or if you've been sued, or if you have a grievance filed against you and it's related to something slipping through the cracks, put it into a checklist, put it into a workflow. You will not regret it. And this is the same type of deal. This is just a closeout form for a divorce. Again, if you want it, happy to send it to you. So again, here's who it's assigned to. Here's what has to happen with child support, with health insurance. So for Texas, there is a metric ton of stuff that we have to file in relation to child support, in relation to wage withholding orders and BBS forms for the Bureau of Vital Statistics. So there's just a lot of little things that don't take up a lot of time, but it's a lot to go through to check off. But it's very important that each and every one of these things are done to be able to say that we can close out that case and not get sued later. So just one of those things. Again, I would say for closeout files, I talk about, hey, you can be as global as you want or as granular as you want. For closeout files, Absolutely be granular. Every single thing that you need to close out a file should be listed in here. Don't skimp on it. Oh yeah, let's get into a little bit of a live demonstration here. All right, so as I stop sharing my screen, let me end this slideshow real quick. All right, let me get that open. Here we go. Oh, I need to I need to share it, guys. All right, so we're gonna share this screen, which should be screen 2. All right, so y'all should see this. Let me move that out of the way. Hopefully it'll load. Here we go. Beautiful. Okay, so this is just a regular old client file in Smokeball. And first, we'll talk about document automation. So, for instance, practice management software, again, the beauty of it, depending on which company you use, they're all going to have the same principle of everything existing in one place. So, all of your emails, all of your pleadings, all of your case details, it is in one spot. You shouldn't need to have any integrations in order to work your cases, right? So, cool thing that you can start doing with document automation. So, if I just wanted to draft a letter to the client, since this is in Elizabeth Johnson, this is a divorce matter. So I'm just going to say I want to draft a blank letter. I want it to be to my client, who is Elizabeth Johnson. We'll create that document. And so what'll happen is it's now in the process of automating that document. So it's opening up Microsoft Word, and then it's opening up the template that we did for the letter, essentially for our cases. So you'll see right now it looks like a bunch of gobbledygook. It's actively automating this document. My internet is not the best here, but so you see it automated it. So it'll put your firm letterhead up here. It auto-populates the date. Here's the client information. So I no longer have to copy and paste that from intake paperwork. And then it'll usually say you can customize this, but it'll always say in the marriage of yada yada with cause number yada yada. And then here you go, dear Miss Johnson, yours truly. Hunter is our firm partner right now, and I'm using his account, but it would be my name or my signature. So all you have to do is say, hello, Elizabeth. We're just typing this in just because. And so then, and let's say that letter's done and I want to send it. There are cool things that you can do here with automation. And just real quick, because it's Smokeball, which is fun, you'll see since I opened this up within the client file, if you look over to the right, it's already linked to her case because I opened it up within her case. And so I can already save this down into her client file. I can send it I can put it into our client portal, or I can send it via email. So let's say I want to email it. And so let's say I want to email it to the client, so Elizabeth, and then I want it to be a PDF though. So I select the PDF, send it to her. And so when I select OK, it's now putting that into Microsoft Outlook. So it's like an automation within an automation. Look at us, it's like an inception. So there are a couple things that you can do with it that's really, really cool when it comes to automating both documents and then also just automating emails. It's actually probably, oh, it's loading. Oh no, did I click on it wrong? Oh, I might have just clicked on too many things at once. Cool. All right, we're gonna go back into here. And so same thing with drafting. So weird, why did it do that? Oh, now it's not even showing up. Oh, I think oh, did my computer freeze? Oh no. That was me because I had too many tabs open earlier. Okay, but what you can do also is, for instance, so up here it says case captions. That would be your case style. You can open that up and it's going to auto-populate that caption. Oh, here we go. Look at, there it is. And so here's our letter. It's in PDF. I think it takes a little longer to save it and send it because it's a PDF. So I can do this. I can send it to the client. And then the cool thing is it's going to pop up right there because I just sent it. So it auto saves it down. It recognizes that my client email is connected to her file. So it will automatically save down into the file, which is nice. So that's how document automation looks. So for instance, if I wanted to draft just a regular form, so let's see, let's talk about discovery. Let's say interrogatories, I want this to open up. And you'll see again, this looks really crazy and like gobbledygook, but that's just the process of automating it, right? So here it is, everything's already automated, where it says petitioner, everything's already auto-populated with the opposing party's information too, right? So this is Roggs, it's going to Brian Janik, the attorney for the other side. So everything's auto-populated for you. My signature is auto-populated. I could put my signature auto-populated here too if I wanted. So it's already done. So all I have to do with document automation is look at this, bless this, and send it on its way. So you notice I don't ever have to do any type of copying and pasting. I don't have to worry about the case style being in the right format. It already always is. So it's just nice when you don't have to worry about it. Here, let me get out of here though. I do not want to save it. Thank you. So no, thank you. Alrighty. So that's kind of how document automation looks or works. So it's kind of, dipping your toe into it. You can get really fun with it, but we don't have time for it at this point. And there's a few document automation standalone softwares, I think. So for instance, this is within Smokeball, but there's one called Gavel, which I think is also integrating with some AI stuff, which should be interesting. We have AI too now. Fancy. But so there's standalone ones like that. There was also ProDoc, but I think Thomson Reuters, I think that's now been sunset, so that doesn't exist anymore. But so there's other ones too. I think there's Hot Docs. So there's a few. I just love when everything's included all in one. So Smokeball, it's just nice because it's all in one thing. So when I automate a document and send it off, it automatically saves it down in the client file. With the others, it's not going to be as seamless if you just have a standalone piece, but there are standalone document automation pieces that you can look into. So if you're not looking at a full-blown practice management software, go ahead, look into those other standalone pieces of software. Now, with when we're looking at workflows, so for instance, here's just a workflow that I added earlier. It was about discovery that's been propounded to the client. You'll see it says here's just things that I quickly put in there. When our discovery is due, I have to send the discovery to the client. I have to check in with the client with regard to discovery because turns out they are their own worst enemy and never want to answer discovery. Why should I have to do it? He should have to do it. He is doing it. You too have to do it. That's how discovery works. Well, I don't want to. I don't want to. We both have access to the credit card statements. Why should I have to do it? It's a whole thing. Family lawyers, no peace. But anyway, so you always need to check in with the client probably a week ahead of time. Get all discovery and draft responses. You're going to finalize those responses. You're going to get the client to sign it, and then you're going to send it and serve it on opposing counsel. So for instance, I selected that workflow. I want to apply it. Let's say I just got served with the discovery. So I click next. And so you'll see here, everything related to discovery depends on the due date, right? And so it's not even going to let me click done or continue until I put in a due date here. So if I just got served with discovery and let's say it's 30 days, granted this isn't completely 30 days, we're just going to do it there for purposes of today. And you'll see once I say, hey, this is due on the 15th, everything else will correspond to that date. So, hey, I need to send discovery to client today. I need to check in with the client on 5/1. I need to get all of the draft responses together by 5/8. I've got to finalize those responses and get client signatures by 5/12. So that way I can send discovery to opposing counsel. So you see, I did that, and now it's going to give me some dates that I need to do this by in order to get it served by May 12th, because we want a little bit of wiggle room because clients are inconsistent and crazy with discovery. So that's pretty cool. It's been assigned to a specific person. Let's say that this is their case and they want to handle all of it, or if they're the paralegal, things like that. So again, it's just nice. And you can click into some of these where if I wanted to, I could attach a document here from my document library and then say, okay, this is going to be the standardized letter that we send to every client that explains what discovery is. I can link it here and then it'll be automatically automated so that all you have to do is just click save and send. So there's just sky's the limit with regard to what you can do with, I would say, document automation, but especially with workflows. But document automation is the one that I use the most, especially now that I'm a solo and, I want to not work when the sun goes down. So it's been nice to have that document automation feature in there. All right, let me get back into the slides and then we'll get into Q&A real quick. So let me get back into here. So bear with me while I share this all. Again, if you have questions, go ahead, put that into the Q&A box or go ahead and put that into the chat. And we will get to those in a minute. All right, here we go. Okay, so right before we get into Q&A, like I said before, at the very top of today's program, just wanted to say a big thank you for having me and a big thank you to Smokeball for hosting today's CLE. And I just wanted to say, I know I mentioned it before throughout today's CLE, but legal technology is really critical to the success of law firms in my eyes, especially going from having minimal legal technology and then having too much, but having none of it speak to each other, to finally having practice management software. This really was the thing that revolutionized and upgraded my practice for the better. And actually my old firm, they're now all Smokeball users, so that was really fun to see, and it's been fun to see their growth. But especially if you're using applications like Microsoft Word and Microsoft Outlook and Excel, having software like Smokeball that's fully integrated with it, including when you automate your documents, it's just mwah, chef's kiss to me. So if you're really looking to take your firm to the next level and maybe dip your toes into the waters of AI and document automation and billing and automatic time tracking, which saved my life, I highly recommend that you look into Smokeball. And right before we get into Q&A, we're going to launch a poll on that. So remember, I said that we would reach out to you with more information if you wanted it. So we're going to launch that poll about if you want to learn more about Smokeball and how it can work for your firm. So yes, no, not at this time, or maybe you're my favorite people and you already are a Smokeball user. But again, we'll keep this up. Go ahead, put your questions into the Q&A box or into the chat box. Since we don't have that many people here, I will read them. But really, truly, if you want to learn more about practice management software and what it even is, or maybe how Smokeball compares to your current setup, happy to talk to you. So select yes. Typically what'll happen is they'll schedule a demo, which is a live demonstration of the software, which you should be doing for any type of legal technology that you have. And usually it's a half-hour Zoom call, and they'll kind of take you through it to see if it's a good fit for your firm. Do that with every piece of software that you can. It's just the easiest way to figure out if this is going to be legit and if this is going to work for you. But big thing about legal technology is, and my ethos on it is, if it doesn't make me more money or it doesn't give me more free time back in my day, I do not want it. Why am I paying for it? So I would keep that in the back of your mind as you shop around. And again, best of all, that we are an approved member benefit provider for the Florida Bar, which means you get a whopping 10% discount on our Smokeball subscription. Sounds small. It's actually very, very good, very significant. This is a great deal. So if you want to learn more about it, we'll put that back into the chat for that link, or scan that fancy schmancy QR code, and that'll get you there too. All right, so getting into questions. Here we go. Oh, before we get into questions, let me give you your code. What we're all here for. Okay, so today's course qualifies for an hour of general credit and 1 hour of technology credit. So super fun. The course number for today's webinar is 8997. Again, that's 8997. So you get an hour of general or an hour of technology. So that's a good deal. So while y'all are doing that, though, let me pull up the Q&A. Oh, please demo the Microsoft Quick Parts. Thank you. Oh, yeah, let me do that right now. Okay, so we've got some time. Let me go ahead and do that. But again, 8997 is your course number. I'm going to pull up just a random Microsoft Word doc so I can show y'all what Quick Parts looks like. All right, and let me share my screen again. All right, so this is just a random little blog. I did ignore the content. It's about succession planning, because who doesn't want to think about their mortality? But so if you look at it, here's where Quick Parts comes in. So we're gonna go, it should be on insert. Yep. So if you go to the insert ribbon up here, which is at the top, actually this would be, oh, I can't find, oh, that disappeared. Where did that go? Oh, because I'm still sharing that. Oopsie doopsie. I didn't exit out of that properly. All right, so anyway, neither here nor there. So if you look here, you'll see that here's just a blog. Up here would be Quick Parts. Again, go to the insert ribbon in Microsoft Word. Quick Parts is hidden kind of over here to the right. And you'll see, and you want to focus on auto text. So for instance, let's say that instead of this being about law firm succession, let's say that this was a signature block that I put on all of my pleadings that I just need to have handy because I've been copying and pasting it from other templates. So let's say this was a signature block. So what I would do is just highlight it, go to Quick Parts, go to Auto Text. And then click on Save Selection to Auto Text Gallery. And I can name it. So for instance, I'm going to name it as signature. And you can put anything you want in it, description, anything you want. You can put it into a different gallery. I've just selected the default, which is auto text, but so just save it as what you would recall it as. Say, okay. And so that way, let's say this is the end of your document. You want to refer to quick parts. If you start typing in signature, you'll see it says press enter to insert. And there it is. So if that was your signature block, it makes it very easy because you can just type in signature and enter, and this will pop up from quick parts. So it's really just saving your favorite templates in here. And you can save like pages of templates. So if there's a favorite template that you wanted, highlight it, click on quick parts, and then you save selection to your quick parts gallery, put what it is. Maybe it's a petition or something that you like all the time, put it in there. So that's just a quick little thing for quick parts. So underutilized thing in Microsoft Word. There's a lot of things that are underutilized in Microsoft Word, but that's just kind of the quick part of it. So let's see here. Let me stop sharing there, or let's go back to PowerPoint. Yes, hopefully. Yes. All right, and we're back. All right, and I think we've got time for a couple more questions if there are. Let's see. Da, 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 da. All righty. Well, I think no more questions. So Microsoft Word, and I think I've given one for Florida Bar, so you can find it on Legal Fuel. But so there's a lot of vastly underutilized pieces of Microsoft Word that lawyers in general should know. Go ahead and find that on Legal Fuel. Highly recommend it. Not to toot my own horn, but but it's a Microsoft Word for legal professionals, and it's just a lot of tips and tricks where I go more into quick parts on that one, and I kind of do a live demonstration for the whole time working through Microsoft Word. All right, well, let me get you to the end of this thing as we close it out. All right, so if you would like to reach me, sometimes I say some really fun things on LinkedIn. So visit my LinkedIn. You can scan this QR code to get there. So sometimes I say some pithy things, other times it's just some funny things, but it's cool stuff. And I talk about legal tech quite a bit too, because I'm really obviously passionate about this. Or if you had any questions about today, or you wanted me to send you any templates whatsoever that I talked about, especially those closeout sheets, happy to do that. Shoot me an email. I'm jordan.turk@smokeball.com. Or if you just want to chat with me, go ahead, shoot me a direct message on LinkedIn or send me an email. But thank you very much for having me.